So how do we know if the scope is accurate? Meaning, if somebody brings us a project and they tell us all the work that they're going to do to it, how do we look at that scope of work and we know whether or not it's actually going to be within that price range, if it's going to be a little bit more expensive than that, especially if we're a first-time investor or we've never had experience in this market before?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most challenging questions, because for us, or for myself personally, when I first started, I did not have a lot of information to go off of and say, hey, the scope of work is legitimate. Someone could just slap something down and say, hey, it's going to take me, I roughly estimate that for a 2,500 square foot home, it's going to cost me, $30,000 to do all of the remodeling that takes place in the home. Let's say it's just all cosmetic finishes. And you might not know if that's legitimate or not. And that's a really hard thing to overcome. So what happened for me personally is I had a rehabber who walked me through all of the entire scope of work and explained to me, hey, no, this is where I'm buying my raw materials from. This is what labor costs per my general contractor, and really explained things to me. So I got a head start. So if you're a lender going to your first deal, I don't want to say you can rely on the borrower to tell you what you need, but they can at least get you started, and then you can go and validate on the back end, because what they buy is what they buy. And then whatever their contracted rates are for labor, you can kind of work those things out. When you go and need to validate at that point, or if you're a rehabber and you have to figure out these things out just entirely on your own, talk to other rehabbers. That is the benefit of local RIAs and investor meetups, is you have people there who are doing deals. Just hop in a group, ask questions, and people will get back to you. I see people all the time in our Facebook groups here in Cincinnati just going through and providing that content. I need someone who can do this type of work. Use so-and-so. Agents who work with investors. That's another huge resource.
Huge.
I mean, and it's nice because they know the specifics, but they're kind of on the outside. So that's honestly one of our biggest go-tos in our business. Is we work with a rehabber, but we also have a really great agent that we work with here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and get a lot of great value from.
One of the reasons I feel like that's valuable to be sort of in the business, but also have that outside, more objective look, is because you see a high volume of projects being done. And so you can kind of get a gauge for what the average is, right? Well, in this area, I just remember so-and-so doing a project that looked like this, and then so-and-so doing another project that looked like this. You kind of have a high level view where you can give that input, be a little bit more objective because you're not emotionally attached to the properties, at least not as much, and kind of talk about averages.
If you think about it, maybe there's a lot to be said for the person that's flipped 100 properties, let's say. I mean, they're going to be terrific and to be an expert. But if you're new and you need someone who has high exposure to real estate, chances are you're going to have a better chance finding a high volume agent or a high volume lender such as ourselves who's done a significant amount of properties. I mean, we're in the 20s now, so I wouldn't necessarily say we're high volume or anything like that. We're really small. But how many people at RIA that we know are going to say they've been able to loan on 20 plus properties or seen 20 plus scopes of work that have been executed on? I mean, in a lot of ways, we're ahead of the schedule in terms of being able to help people in that area. So
yeah, we're not high volume, so to speak, but we're higher volume than zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so even that's valuable.
Exactly.
If you're just getting started. And then the final one that I would say, and this is really, I know that you've read a lot of books, but I've used a lot of Google. If you can't get in touch with anybody, let's say you just exhaust all your resources and for some reason you can't get in touch with anybody, you can always lean on Google. You can always lean on one that I didn't think of, but you put in here, was going to a hardware store and making sure that the stuff that is being quoted by your borrower or that that you're going to have to buy if you're a rehabber is actually accurate. Like the actual materials are priced out correctly, etc. And then a big one that you've leveraged recently and that I've started getting behind as well is reading books. What are some of the books? Do you remember the titles of some of the books that you've read for some people who might be interested?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head, I really can't say, but pretty much anything within the Bigger Pockets network is pretty solid. Yeah. So I would start there and just go through any of the books they have in their publishing house. Whether you're a lender or a rehabber or just someone looking to gather more knowledge on a specific area of real estate, they're going to have a book in that sub niche, probably from an expert that can really get you, I wouldn't say started, because that's action that you have to take on your own, but it'll get you feeling confident enough to make the steps you need to take.
For sure. And then Jason and Chris have a book called, is it Hard Money Secrets? Is that their book?
Yeah.
I think it's called Hard Money Secrets. So there's tons of books out there. I'm just pulling up here. I know that you sent me a list of a couple of these. I think it'd be really nice because just to have a reference here. So there's the Real Estate Note Investing. That's by Bigger Pockets. The Insider's Guide to Private Lending by Jeff Levin. And obviously these are from a lending perspective, but I think they'd be valuable for a lot of people. And then the Private Lender Playbook. So those are just a few that you could leverage as well. And then what we've done, and especially since you've gotten started, is just get smarter with every deal, right? So once you get your first deal under the belt, you just collect all that knowledge, all that information. You take note of what certain projects cost, certain materials cost in a certain area, and you gain that experience and you put it to work.
Yeah, I think I've seen it with people we've worked with where they might be doing some deals and it takes them a while to get established and say, okay, well, I'm working with this GC. I know it's going to cost me $150 a door to do all the doors in this property. And that's huge. Having those quick items to check off the list and know like securely, hey, this is where I'm going to be at. And as you go throughout the process of either lending or rehabbing properties, continue to build that list out. And eventually you'll just have a go-to of hey, this is a quick and accurate way to scope out this project, because hard numbers, real experience is absolute gold. You can read all the books you want, but until you actually do a property and get the numbers back, only then will you know or feel more confident about the deals you're going to do forward. And now that we're into deal 20, it feels pretty good to have those other 20 to go back and reference.